you have taken it before? Awesome. How many of you have taken more than once before? Yeah, we're going down. We're shifting down. How many of you have never taken it? See? Woo! Awesome. Okay, so I am a real believer in, oh, do I have to stay put? I am a real believer in, and you will come to find out, volunteering quickly. I believe in that. I believe in these things are opportunities. And by the last class, if somebody says, who would like to say the opening prayer? I expect every one of you to raise your hand. Of course, knowing that only 2 of you will be picked, your chances are sort of like the lottery. You know, you might not get picked. But this is what it's all about. It's doing. It's in the doing. It's in the doing. So, with that being said, I am going to close my eyes and count to 10. Do you ever do that with your kids? I bet I'm going to count. You never count to 10. You count to 3. I'm going to count to 3. So I'm going to actually count to 10. And I want 5 of you who have never taken the class before to stand up on your mark, set, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo-hoo! I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Okay, this is what I want and need. And the reason that I say this is because I gear my classes around what we have in this class. So if we have mostly preschoolers, we will talk examples being preschoolers. If we have mostly teens, we will talk teen examples. If we are empty nesters and have kids that are out of the home, we will talk grandparenting issues. Though we will always cover a smattering of all of them, principles are the same. But sometimes you don't see how to apply them differently. So that's what I want to help you do, is learn how to take a correct principle, apply it on all levels. That's our goal. That's one of our goals. So very quickly, Cliff Notes, we're going to go around. I want you to say, I want your name, and I promise to forget. So I want your name, I want how many children you have and their ages, and I want to know your biggest challenge right now. Okay? Holly.
I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, 5-year-old, and then a 1-year-old. My biggest challenge for parenting is my 10-year-old. She has a lot of anger, really strong will, and I'm a pretty passive person, so I don't always know how to parent that.
Perfect. We'll get her. Okay, you can sit down.
I'm Chanel Honeycutt. I have 3 girls, 10, 8, and 4. My biggest challenge with them is their emotions. Everywhere.
Okay, 10, 8, and 4 girls that are pretty emotional.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they don't outgrow that. We just learn to control it. Very good. Okay, thank you.
I'm Deanna Collins, and I have a 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And probably the biggest thing is just building confidence and how to help them feel the spirit to have that security.
Perfect. 8, 5, and 2, and help them to live by the Holy Ghost.
I'm Melissa Jangula, and I have 2 teens and 2 preteens. And my biggest problem right now is keeping my teenage daughter in the house at night.
Oh, how old is she?
15.
15. Okay. Keeping her home at night. Good.
I'm Erin Gurney, and I have a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And I would say one of my biggest problems is my 6-year-old. He rules the roost, and I'm trying to figure out how to.
How old were they again?
14, 11, 8, and 6.
So 6 is the baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ah, I got a little prima donna on the end. Okay.
I'm Wendy DeSouza. I have 3, girl, boy, girl, 15, 13, and 9. And my biggest with all of them is defiant bickering.
Defiant bickering. Oh, we can fix that. We'll make it kind bickering.
Karen Melander. I have 4 boys, 13, 9, 7, and 5, almost 6. Anyway, just keeping them busy.
Okay.
They're so into video games and technology.
Oh, we can fix that too.
Scaring the heck out of me. Just keeping them busy, and that's my biggest challenge.
We can deal with that.
Monica Lambert. I have an 11-year-old and a 5-year-old. Defiance and them fighting, which drives me crazy. And then my son spent some time with my sister's children this summer and has picked up cussing, and I cannot get him to stop. And it's my 5-year-old doing it.
Yes.
My name's Mary Ann, and I have 2 boys, an 11-year-old who's been the only child for 11 years, and we just adopted through foster care, and he's 18 months old. So we have a big age gap. We're also currently foster parents, so a lot of transition and a lot of different issues that come into our home. But my oldest son has ADHD, and so anything that comes with that, being motivated, he's been also the only child, so he wants to be an adult and be in charge, and with all the ADHD, so he's a really sweet kid, but let's get motivated, let's be independent, let's get going. So, but then we got the 18-month-old is a spitfire, climbs everything, walking on the table. Yeah, he's constantly busy. So. Big age gap, so I'm all over the place. So I'm sure anything that comes, I will take it in.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you.
I'm Sarah McKee. I have 2 boys, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and an 18-month-old. And so we're just throwing tantrums and keeping our emotions.
Aren't they fun? Aren't they fun? I'm going to teach you how to laugh at those and just enjoy them. Enjoy them.
I'm Savannah Caballero. I have 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. They're 9, 7, 4, and 2. And then I also have my 3 nephews every day, and they are 9, 7, and 4.
Whoa.
And my biggest challenge right now is my nephews are very difficult. They're very defiant. They have behavior issues, and those behaviors are rubbing off on my children.
Of course they are. Absolutely. Yeah. So are you like babysitting them during the day, or how do you have them?
My brother got a divorce about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And he has primary custody. So I live out in Middleton, and they go to school on the other side of Nampa, so we have to go pick them up after school every day. And then we have them until, my brother gets there and eats dinner and stuff.
So they're going through a lot of issues.
Yeah, and they were going through issues before the divorce.
Sure.
They were very defiant and beating each other up.
Okay. Good. Let's start back there. Yes.
I am Melanie Elkins, and I have 6 children, age 36 to 45, and 20 grandchildren.
I love it.
And I also teach primary.
What age?
So I cover all of
What age is your primary class?
9 and 10.
9 and 10. Okay. Awesome. Any particular problem, or just?
Well, no real problem. It's just I like to help with 20 grandchildren. You know, there's a variety of issues that maybe I can help with.
Absolutely.
And also dealing with adult children.
Yes. Isn't that fun? That's a new ball game. You just think you get it, and they move out, and you got to change all your parenting. Yes, it's wonderful. Okay.
I'm Amanda Flake. I have 3 boys, and then 1 on the way. I have a almost 11-year-old, 9-year-old, and 7-year-old. And then I have a girl on the way. And then my biggest challenge probably would be, it's hard to choose one. There's a couple. I'm probably my oldest with the back talking, and then my middle child with his meltdowns. So.
Okay. Good. You're gonna get sad when I solve all your issues today. Say, why do I come back? Okay. Yes.
Okay, I'm Jill Beckel, and I have 7 kids, and so 2 19-year-olds, 2 16-year-olds, 13, 14, or 13, 12, and then a 7-year-old, and all boys except 1 girl. And yeah, we're a blended family, so lots of chaos and craziness, and kind of you treat me different, that kind of stuff.
Oh yes.
So lots of and you know, obviously most of them are teenagers, except for the one sweet little one that I don't want to grow up. So you know.
Good.
All that fun stuff.
Good.
I'm Amanda Campbell, and I have 2 2-year-olds, twins, boy and girl, very different. And I would say, my sister would say discipline for me to discipline them, but I'm working on it. It's just new because now they're all, my little girl's throwing tantrums now. She doesn't get what she wants, but she's not so bad. She's not so bad. And then I would say I
and then me and my husband teach primary, or nursery. So we've got nursery kids, and then we teach nursery, so
Yeah.
all we have is kids.
Yeah, you do. You're locked into nursery.
I'm Jessica T. I have 4. I have 3 boys and a girl. My oldest is 15, 12, 10, and 6. I guess my major problem is with my teenagers, they fight all the time. And then of course the younger, being the only girl, maybe being a little spoiled. So trying to find that balance. And then my 10-year-old has meltdowns like all the time. I'd like to find a solution for that.
This is awesome. Are you hearing your own problems in any of these? Are you hearing a repetitive thing going on here? Yeah. We're going to start back in the corner so you can sit down. I'm sorry I made you stand that long.
All right. Marshall Davis. We have 10 kids. Our oldest is 26 and youngest is 11. I've had every problem that you had discussed and the ones that you haven't discussed. So we're here just to get a general grab bag. Refine our. We have 4 left at home, and so we're getting tired. And so I seem to let them get away with stuff, and I can see it affecting some of their attitudes. So
Yeah.
we can get just PMCS retuned.
I love your honesty. Bless you. There's a lot of them that are getting tired. Thank you.
I'm Amy Sandage. My husband Jerry, he didn't want to stand up and introduce himself. We have 2 boys, 14, almost 15, and then 10 and 5. And I guess our biggest challenge is probably with our oldest one. He's getting to the age where we need to, well, and he's already started making more decisions on his own, and so trying to figure out how to give him enough self-confidence to make good decisions. You know, dating advice, if you have any.
Oh, we got it.
Loves girls a lot, and so that's a little bit of a concern, so just that.
Yeah, the Lord gave him that drive. What can we say?
I'm Angela. I have 7 kids, 8 including my daughter-in-law, ranging from 22 to 4. And so I feel kind of good right now because I just want ideas on how to make them feel more loved and get the time. We seem to not have enough time to be able to give them all time, but I will probably enjoy hearing your comments.
Good. Okay, let's start on that row.
Micah Gary. I have 5, 16, 14, 10, 7, and 5. And 2 older boys and then a baby boy with the girls in the middle. And I guess all of my problems I know result from accidental parenting, so I'll own it. But my older boys, and it's definitely trickling down to everybody else's, they just think they can argue their way out of everything that comes out of my mouth.
Does it
And
work?
It's kind of, no, not at all. But they like to hunt me down to argue with me almost. Like it's kind of funny, but like I went to get my oldest son to kind of separate so I can cool down. Sometimes I have to go, I'm changing my clothes. And so he will actually leave them and shut the door. Asking him to respectfully give me a minute, doesn't work. And then they all do not know how to use kind words when they talk to me.
How old is he?
He is 16.
Oh boy.
But
yes! Oh yes!
So yeah, I have to make them uncomfortable. But but the kind words are an issue with all of them. So.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Iris. We have 10 children, and we are currently raising our 2 great-grandchildren, age 2 and 3.
You've got a house full.
I thought I was doing pretty good as a mother until I started raising my great-grandchildren, and it is a huge challenge. And probably my biggest problem is not having the energy to take care of problems when they come up. But the biggest thing that I worry about with them right now is probably the safety issue of when I tell them to come, they run the other way. And that's, I have no idea how to stop that.
Okay.
I'm Bill Whiteman, my husband, and it's actually my oldest daughter that's her son's children. He's 24, and getting him to accept responsibility kind of, I mean, choices he makes. That's kind of a concern. You know, I mean, he's working on it, you know, and the mother's, we don't know where she's at. She's somewhere out of state, but so we're just, you know, we've got a couple kids we're raising, so any ideas help, you know.
Is he
we're
living
older,
with
it's
you
hard
also?
when we're older. I don't know what it is. I think our younger generation is definitely a choice generation. They are strong spirits.
They are.
He is living with his mother.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
I'm Audrey Colchison. I have 3 kids, girl, boy, girl. Almost 10, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And my 5-year-old is very strong-willed, very stubborn. I had a really good first child, a pretty good second, then she came and she's just got so much going on that, like, we don't know. Nothing works with her. And her and my son, they're really close in age, so they bicker a lot and just the nagging each other. And
Yeah. Perfect.
I'm Julie Dombrowski, and I have 6 kids, ages 18 to 6. And I guess the thing I'm hoping to get out of this class is ways to help me keep my older children on the covenant path, to help them to have strong testimonies and those testimonies to stay strong.
Okay. Next week, we're going to be right on that for 2 hours.
I'm Josh Ashby, this is my wife Tammy. We have 6 kids, 5 teenagers, 19, 17, 16, 14, and
I love the way you're reading it off the paper. You are a good husband.
And we have 1 6-year-old girl. For me, the reason I want to be here is a lot of times our kids are pretty good, really. Most of the time the problem is us. We both have really good ideas, but they're different. And so it's choosing which way to go. Or I guess understanding that maybe they're both right and we're just different.
Yeah.
And being okay with that.
Yeah.
Choose her way and you will be right.
I hope that as you listen, you heard yourself. And the reason I do this on the first class is because sometimes moms, when they're in their own little world, feel like they're just awful. Their kids are arguing and they won't obey and they're sassy and they are defiant and they're locking you in your room so you can't get out because they're arguing with you. And you just feel like, I must be a horrible parent. These kids are really awful. One of the two. But as I want you to see, these are typical problems in parenting. Okay? So you're not bad, and your children are not bad. Neither one are bad. I hope that what you will come to see is that both you and your children need to make changes. The hard part is your children won't change until you do. So we talk about this being a parenting class. Our goal is to help our children be strong and on the covenant path. But it only happens as we change, perhaps, some of the ways we look at things, our paradigm, and some of the things that we do. So hopefully, you'll find both of those. Now, I want 2 people that have taken the class at least twice to stand up and say why you're back again. Why are you back again? Perfect, I'll take you 3. Perfect. Perfect. Your name, your kids,
Okay.
same thing.
Angela Thewson. I have 6 kids, and I had 2 nieces live with us for a period of time, and then my 6. My nieces are gone. My 6 are almost 18, down to almost 8. And I started the class when, my 3rd daughter was about 3. And I wasn't sure she was going to make it to 4. And I was really, really struggling. And I finally was able to come to the class, and it was life-changing for us. The way I realized and learned she wasn't a terrible child, it was the way I was parenting her. And I learned how to parent her better. She's now 14 and we're still trying to.
And she's still alive.
Barely. But I'm back because it's been a few years since I've been because of whatever, we haven't been able to come for a few years. And again, a lot of what you guys are saying, teenagers, they're great kids. They're really good. They came to us really good. We managed to screw them. So we're trying to change some of that around and learn how to deal with teenagers. And we had the other two, but they weren't ours. It was different. And they came to us with major challenges, so it was a little bit different. Now we have our own kids that we've raised, and like I said, they're really good kids. They're not bad. They just need some help trying to get them kind words, not arguing, responsibilities, making your bed, actually doing your chores without me screaming and yelling and forcing and bribing and begging and paying or whatever else I have to. And none of it happens, so.
We'll get it answered.
So I'm back to
get
it going again.
I'm April, and I have 5 kids, 22, 19, okay, wait, no, I skipped somebody. 22, 20, 19, 17, and 15. And we're a military family as well, and so like my husband's in Afghanistan right now. And so there's a lot of emotions and dynamics, and pretty much everything everybody else has said too. Dealing with people to do their chores, especially the younger ones. I'm tired and just admit I've not done the best job. It's my own emotions when my husband's here and there, and he is gone and here a lot.
Yeah.
And then how to help my older children who struggle with, they're good kids, like she said, they're really good kids, but everybody struggles. And how to not get so emotionally involved that it is really hard to know how to help them. And today we're hoping my son's mission calls in the mail.
It's going to be online, isn't it?
It's coming, nope, it's in the mail.
Oh, they're going to mail
last week, this week, but it's been sent.
Okay.
So you might be the last one I hope.
You might be the last one I know to get a paper copy. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, they're going online now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Jeannie Peck, and I have 4 children. My oldest is 24 and married. A 21-year-old, 18-year-old, and a 13-year-old. So, I'm here because I am spiritually fed for a week until the next class. Until I I'm with you. I get kind of lazy with the last one, and so he's becoming very defiant. And I also have my 21 is having a really hard time staying on that covenant path, and I have a really hard knowing how to talk to him. So I know you will have so much advice and help him. He's struggling with his testimony, and he wants to feel the Spirit, and he's not living in a good environment, and he recognizes that he's just really struggling and has so many questions, and I just have a hard time communicating with him.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? I love parents who want to be good parents. And the fact that there's challenges, those things we can work on. Let me give you a disclaimer, though, about this class. We can't take away someone's agency. Oh, that I could teach you how to make them be good. But Heavenly Father didn't do that with us, and we can't do them with our children. You may have some that'll stray for a moment. But hopefully, if you've laid that sure foundation, they'll come back. So what we have to do is, like Heavenly Father, learn how to parent in the best way possible, and then help them to be independent and cut them free. And then stand by them no matter what they do, and allow them to make mistakes and repent. And your arms are still open wide, and you'll still take them back. And that goes for those who are 21 leaving home, and those who are 16 who do things that we just can't stand. And you still have to convey to them absolute love. Because that's the only way they'll change. They don't change. They don't change because of what you say. Now that just popped a whole bunch of bubbles. I can't teach you the right thing to say so your children will change. They will change because of what they feel. And if they feel, they will have the desire to change. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into it, though, if you open up to your table of contents, and if you have a syllabus with you, the syllabus is not required. If you would like it, we make them available. It is not a required thing. I typically teach from it. Doesn't mean I always do, but I typically teach from it. So you may want to have it. Your textbook, if you would like to get the textbook, is the current conference enzyme. So our textbook will change halfway through this course because the textbook will be the current conference enzyme. With that being said, this class has homework every week. I don't grade it. And it's not a pass-fail class. But I promise you, if you will do the homework consistently every week with real intent, at the end of the 10 weeks of this class, you will be a different parent than you are today. If you come every week, and my goal every week is to bring the Spirit. And I work very hard at that because I think the Spirit is the teacher. My hope is, my prayer is, that every one of you will hear something different. And so what I want you to do is somewhere, if you have a notebook, on your notebook, if not, in the back of the syllabus, well, I think in the back of each chapter, there's a blank page, and I want you to write down thoughts that you have. I want you to do that. Your thoughts will not pertain to whatever we're talking about. Your thoughts will pertain to something totally, totally different, probably, because your thoughts should pertain to your specific situation. So you may have a random thought about take your defiant son to lunch, and you'll look and say, "You got to be kidding! Why would I want to voluntarily spend an hour with that child?" If whatever your random thought is, go and lay with your 2-year-old on his bed for 15 minutes every night. I don't care what the thought is. Maybe it is have a hot date with your husband. You'll think, what does that have to do with parenting? Quite frankly, it has a lot to do with parenting. A whole lot. That's where parenting starts, is in that marriage relationship. And we're going to have a class on marriage, and we'll talk about that too. But whatever your thought is, write it down. And then I don't want you to stay on that thought and think about if it's good or bad or applies or doesn't. I just want you to write it down and then come back and mentally join the class. Let me tell you something about your brain. You can process 5 times faster than what I can say. So as I'm talking to you, your brain can process 5 times faster. So your brain's going to ping pong. You're going to be thinking about picking up your kids from school and what are you having for dinner, and I need to stop at the store on the way home, and I could have killed that kid last night, and he's really lucky that I didn't. And, that's just what happens. And that does not mean you're not paying attention. That means that you're a normal person and your brain processes that fast. So you will have thoughts that will come to your head. So write those down, but then come back to where we are. On a day, on Sunday evening, or pick a day, pick a time, Monday afternoon when the kids are all at school, whatever you want, I want you to go back and look at that list of thoughts. Some of them are just that, they're a thought. And the Spirit will testify to you at that point that this was just a thought, and you can cross it off. Others are your personal revelation. And I want you to act on those quickly. The reason being, the quicker you act on them, the more Heavenly Father will actually reveal to you. If you look at it and say, that's revelation. I mean, I feel it. I feel that is inspired. But you don't do it, the next time he will not be as quick to reveal to you that answer. So as you keep your ponder pad and go over it on a regular basis, remember to act quickly on, and it may be one, maybe 2 items per week, may not be, you may have 2 all semester, and that's okay. But when you have those, do them. This class goes 10 weeks. We will end the week before Thanksgiving, and then we will be off until approximately the 2nd week in January. And I can't tell you exactly the date. If you want to know exactly the date, you count backwards 10 weeks from spring break, because I want to end the week before spring break. And that's how I calculate what day it's going to start. And so the next semester is 10 different classes. So I actually have in this course about 22 different classes, and I have 20 weeks to give them. So you won't, that's why Andrea said, I may change. I may feel inclined to give something that I just feel like we need. And so you may think, and have read and been all prepared, come ready, and I may throw a curve and not do it. But it's because I also try to live by what the Spirit tells me about what the needs of each of these classes are. And I'm teaching 3 classes a week. Hopefully, I can do 1 preparation, but I may not, because I'll wait and see what's in each of the other classes and what their needs are. If you look on page 6, you will see a list of the classes that we hope to accomplish this semester. Today we're going to do Establish a House of Order. Next week somebody was saying they wanted to help their children stay on the covenant path. Next week we'll cover that on how to teach children to live by and feel and live by the promptings of the Holy Ghost. Next week we will do traditions, which are the cement that keep your families together. Competition and cooperation will take care of all of these arguing problems that we've had. Your children are in competition. And when they're in competition, they argue. And the more they feel that competition, the worse becomes their battles. So if we can take them out of that competition, then the fighting will really slow down. I won't say stop. I mean, let's get realistic, but it'll definitely slow down. Praise and encouragement. Most of you feel, as parents, the importance of saying positives to your children, but all positives are not equal. And sometimes you say positives to a child, and rather than filling them and making them feel good, it defeats them and makes them feel terrible. And so you say, oh, I don't get that. If you're saying positive, how come they're feeling rotten? And we'll talk about, and the reason is because you're not saying it right. You're not saying it so they can internalize it. And therefore, it becomes food for a fight. And so we'll talk about how to make a positive build. That's what we want it to do. We will talk about work. Some of you mentioned that your kids are kind of lazy and sort of into screens and aren't necessarily doing their jobs with great joy and vigor. I don't know about the joy part, but boy, we're going to get them to work. And they'll thank you for it later. Talk about gratitude. Some of you feel like your children are takers and live in a world of entitlement, which they do. So in that world, how do you teach them to be grateful? Gratitude is the beginning of humility. And you cannot build any spiritual attribute without a foundation of gratitude. So it's important that they learn to have a grateful heart. Once they have a grateful heart, they become teachable. And if they're teachable, the Spirit can teach them and they can move forward. But they need that grateful heart. So we'll work on that. Marriage, we're going to talk about how to be able to look at your wife and say you're right and be happy with that even though you think she's wrong. So We're going to talk about how different people feel loved and how meeting their need for love, we can become an influence in their lives, become a power in their lives. And then the last one is, how do you receive personal revelation? How do you recognize, know, and act upon revelation so that the Lord can be your teacher, not me? And so that's the course. That's what I hope that we'll be able to cover. Do you see anything there that you might like? Maybe? I mean, do you see how some of these topics will answer some of the problems or the questions that we've had? And so I wish my memory was better. As my hair went gray, so did my memory. So I'm going to try and remember specific issues that we had so that we can pull examples to those issues. But if I don't, feel free along the way to raise your hand and say, what about? And we'll see what we can do about working on that. The goal of this class is, in 10 weeks, I promised you if you would do the homework, you would be a better parent. You will be. But with that being said, the goal is to change percentages. I do not believe, and I don't think that you should believe, that taking a good class in parenting will make you a perfect parent. It won't. But my goal is to help you change percentages. This is a journey. Parenting is a journey. And so if your mode of dealing with your children is to yell or argue, and they have caught you in that trap, and they start when they're really young. And so I just tell you, as they get older, they get better and you get worse. So by the time they're teenagers, they are really good, and you are really tired of it. So, but if you don't know anything else, you do it, and you do it with more intensity. So you're just yelling a little louder, a little longer, a little stronger, and they are flourishing in that. So if I teach you the principle, which I will one day, not today, if you yell tomorrow 98% of the time, you pat yourself on the back. You're doing great. And the next day it's 95. Good for you. That is awesome. But see, we tend to look at it and say, but I'm still yelling. You look at the changes that you're making, even if they're small, and give yourself credit. This class is about changing percentages. So I want you to get a new view, have a new paradigm, see things different, but just because you see something different doesn't mean you're going to do it at 100%. It means there's old habits that have to be broken. So if you can just start working on them, you're good. You're good. So we're all about changing percentages. The syllabus, I will give you some assignments in that. For example, in this class today, as a matter of fact, I probably ought to give you your homework right now because I really have a tendency to forget it. Your homework for this week is, and it's always pronged, I never just give you one assignment. I love to give you a few. And so, and remember, I will ask next week who did it and what they thought and how it went, and we want some feedback on it. But don't feel guilty if you haven't. Just listen to listen and learn, that's all. But your homework is this. I want you to read with real intent the introduction to the syllabus if you have one. If you don't have one, you got off the hook. So I want you to read the introduction. Then I want you to read and ponder the ponder questions. You will find them in the boxes in the syllabus. So I want you to think about those ponder questions. And then I want you to read and study and take notes. Meaning, I want you to have a to-do list. from the conference talk that was given in the last conference by Elder Devin Durant called Teaching in the Home, a Joyful and Sacred Responsibility. I want you to read that and make notes about what the Spirit testifies to you. Now, I want you to have prayer before you read it.
Can you say that again?
Yes. This one?
Yeah.
It's Teaching in the Home, a Joyful and Sacred Responsibility by Devin Durant, Elder Durant. So you may look at this and say, oh, we're doing all those things. And that's very true. But my guess is you could improve on some of them. So as you read listening to the Spirit. Okay? So that's your homework. Any questions? Yes?
You wanted to ponder questions through the whole syllabus?
No. Just on the first lesson. The ponder questions on the first lesson. Because, as you will come to know, I don't necessarily cover all of the material in that first lesson. I'll take what I think is important out of it, but I want you to think about it. So they're good things to just think about. Good things for you to think about. So any other questions on that? Okay. Here we go. I want to, as I have taught this class and have listened to parents talk, I get the feeling that, and as I've watched my own children and grandchildren, sometimes you feel like you are an effective parent if your children are very busy. And so have you ever sat in Relief Society or Priesthood meeting and they're talking about, well, my kid's he's taking got piano lessons on Monday, and then we go to soccer on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we have mutual, and on Thursday we have swim team, and on Friday that's our day, we just play on Friday, that's a good day, and on Saturday we're also exhausted that we just go out and have family time together, and we never work, and we never, we don't have, but we feel like, and then multiply that times 5 kids. I just have had the wonderful opportunity, and one of my daughters has moved back in with me. Her husband passed away when he was 39, and she's got 3 children, and they're getting a new start, and they've moved up from San Diego, and they're living with me, and she's currently back down in San Diego, getting her house ready to sell, and I am the proud parent of 3 children now. And that takes elementary school, junior high, and high school. And I'm back in the swing of the taxi going and, doing all this stuff. And she was very careful before she brought them all up, got them in school, and got them in all this stuff. And now I'm doing taxi all the time. I'm remembering what it was like. And so I know what you're looking at. And lest I forget, that came back to me. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful. But there has to be a balance. And sometimes we get caught up in thinking we're good parents if we have our children involved in lots of things. Let me read you a quote. This is Elder Worthland. Sometimes we feel that the busier we are, the more important we are, as though our busyness defines our worth. Now think about how you feel about yourself on days that is not absolutely scheduled to the max. Do you feel lazy? Do you feel like, oh, I should be doing something. I just got to get something done. And are we passing that on to our children? That feeling. And we do by example, by default. Okay, this is President Kimball. We must strive at times to focus on the basic purposes of the work so that mere busyness does not create the illusion that we are effective when we are not. And then Elder Elton Perry. The health of any society, the happiness of its people, and I would say the family, their prosperity and their peace all find common roots in the teaching of children in the home. So, with that being said, I think you can say the happiness of your children, long-term and short-term, as well as their prosperity, their desire to work, their ability to work, their focus to work, as well as their peace, even in troubled waters of these last days, come from the roots of the teaching that you will give them in your home. So, I don't want there to be any, this is not a class of guilt. There should never be any guilt feelings. I don't want anybody saying, oh, I'm not doing that. It's awful. This is a class of aha, where if you find something that you don't feel like you're doing well, then it's aha, that may be something I could change. There's no guilt for something that you're doing that you didn't know there was a different way to do it. So, no guilt. But I hope that you have plenty of aha experiences. Now, I have been teaching this class for 30 years. I have, and some of you don't know me at all, I have 10 children, and I had them in 11 years. And I have no doubles. So that just simply means that every 14 months I had a child. And that means when they were 6 months old, I got pregnant again. And that means I was really, really, really crabby for the first 10 years of my children's lives. And they're turning out okay. So you can be crabby, you can make mistakes, you can do things wrong, and they can still turn out great. I grew up in a military family. My dad was very authoritarian, and I realized pretty quickly that that will not work. Let me tell you about parenting styles, approach to parenting. And I want you to kind of think about which style you fit in. Now, if you want to find these are found on LDS.org on Strengthening Families. You can read this for yourself. It's right there, and it talks about 3 different approaches to parenting. And as I read the title of it, I thought, oh, there's more than 3 approaches to parenting. But as I read it, I think it's true. The first one is the authoritarian. And some of you parent there because you are afraid. You parent out of fear. And when we are fearful, we seek to control. We're so afraid that they can't do it, or it won't be right, or they'll make mistakes, or even fear of our own parenting skills, that we want to control them. So authoritative parenting, those parents attempt to shape, control, evaluate the behavior and attitudes of the child in accordance with a set of standard of conduct. So what we're doing is we're taking the gospel as our standard of conduct, which is not a bad thing, but we're evaluating all of the behavior of our children against that standard. But when that happens, the gospel becomes a set of rules. And so they're breaking rules. If they want to wear their dress immodest, they're breaking the rule. If they stay out too late, they're breaking the rule. If they want to date before they're 16, they're breaking the rule. If they don't want to go to church, they're breaking the rule. And so the gospel becomes, and I'm the big boss, so therefore I will make you obey the rules of the standard, which is the gospel. Now, we usually take those standards and put them in our own home, so we say that's the standard for our home. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you don't teach the gospel. You do teach the gospel. But when you parent authoritatively, where you're the big boss, what you reap is rebellion. Now, it may be when they're young, it may be when they get older, or you can also reap absolute, a child who just feels like they can't ever make a decision because they're afraid to be wrong, because it may not be what you want. And so instead of making any decisions, they'll come to you and say, what do you want me to do? So how should I do that? They're pleasers. And they're pleasers to the point that it becomes debilitating. So when you these parents, they want to have firm control of their children's behavior, and they often don't show a lot of warmth. It's just the rules, and you obey the rules. They rarely want to know or encourage their children to express their feelings. Or if they do say that, the children know that only the feelings that comply with the rules of the parents would be okay to express. And so if they don't feel that way, then they don't feel safe in expressing any of their feelings. Does that make sense? Now what happens is, some of you, well, usually what you do is start out with these cute little teeny tiny ones that are so absolutely darling, you can't stand it, and you just love them, and they are so cute. And so you just watch their little antics and you laugh, and they're so funny, and they're just so, but what is really cute for an 18-month-old is not cute for a 5-year-old to do. It loses its cuteness. And so in the beginning, they're raised with a lot of permissiveness. You know, you can just, oh, you're just so cute, and you're just so little. You don't know any better. You're just so little. You're just so cute. Oh, they can be taught better, believe me. But this is your philosophy, and so then so you're very permissive, and that's the second kind of parenting is permissiveness. And so you start out being very permissive, then you can't stand their behavior, so you go into this authoritarian kind of thing, and you're going to set down the rules, and they're going to be good, and you're going to make them do what you want them to do. Well, then what happens is they start rebelling against you. And if you're a fearful parent, you become afraid that they won't like you anymore. And you're afraid that if they don't like you, they won't obey you. And so you're so worried. You feel like to be a good parent, it's your responsibility to help them get what they want. And too often what they want are things. And so you feel like if you're a good parent, you help them get their things. And so you started real permissive, and then you became very authoritarian, but then they get mad, and they're throwing temper tantrums and throwing back all kinds of stuff at you, because permissiveness does not breed gratitude. That doesn't make them grateful. And you'll say, but I gave you this, and I gave you this, and I took you here, and you got to do this, and how come you just want more? Well, permissiveness does not breed gratitude. Gratitude breeds teachability and humility. Permissiveness doesn't teach gratitude. We think they should be. Look at your Christmases. Sometimes they're off the charts. And you think they should be so thankful. But what do they say? Oh, I don't like this color sweater. I don't like that. Oh, I don't like this. Why did you give me this? It doesn't breed gratitude. So we'll talk about how to build that. But so then what happens is in fear, you swing back to permissiveness and you give in. Or they become very, very defiant and ornery and cantankerous, and you give in by default. I want you to know that I am shocked at the number of teenage parents who have quit parenting. They simply say, I just got to get them to 18 and out of here. You know, they won't obey. They won't do anything I say. So, you know, I'm going to feed them until they're 18 and then they're out. These are eternal families. You got them for eternity. That's a lot longer than 18 years. And so we don't stop parenting. With that being said, if you parent well when they're young, parenting teenagers can be, you're going to raise your eyebrows at this, but it can be a pure joy. Teenagers can be fabulous. Fabulous. But you have to have built a relationship with them. Now, the third kind of parenting is what we want. And it's called authoritative. Not authoritarian, but authoritative. And an authoritative parent, and this is where it's different between a lot of teenage parents, you can say, because there's a high degree of expectation. That means there's strong discipline. The expectations are high, and you hold them accountable. But that's also balanced with a very high degree of warmth and love and affection and acceptance. When those two things are balanced, then you can teach any child because they feel their personal worth. So as they feel that personal worth, then they open up, and you have control. You have control, and you're always in control. But your children feel like they have a part. They have a part of the planning. They have a say. What they say matters. So they can express feelings on anything, and it can be safe because you respect them. But within that, it doesn't mean that you give in on standards, on your standards. So let me tell you about how we go about doing this then. Do any of you know what imprinting is? Imprinting with ducks? Imprinting is a phenomena in nature, and it's with ducks, chickens, and as the mother duck sits on her nest and her eggs hatch, then if you're down in any of the parks, and you'll see mama duck and about 10 of these fluffy little balls walking after her. How do those ducklings know to follow mama duck? And the reason they do is because of this natural process that's called imprinting. Imprinting is nature's way of connecting mama and baby. And so what happens is the egg cracks, that duckling imprints or attaches to the first thing it sees, which is usually mama duck. And so then they follow and learn from and are taught by mama duck. Well, they have done a lot of scientific kinds of experiments where they've changed this. And so they've taken the eggs that are almost ready to hatch, and they've put them by a dog. And so as those ducklings hatch out of their eggs, the first thing they see is this dog. And they pick a nice dog. And then you see the ducklings following the dog around the barnyard their whole lives. And that's called imprinting. And so they've imprinted them to a shoe. So they pull a shoe along, and those ducks will follow the shoe. I don't know if you noticed on the news, it's been several years ago, where there was a goose that had imprinted to a car, an automobile, and every time that car took off, that duck was just flying right next to the window. It went wherever that car went. Thought that car was its mama. So it's been shown scientifically that these ducks and chicken, can imprint to a lot of different things. And that imprinting is what's called as an attachment. Now, the key is that attachment occurs with your children. And attachment is the key to being able to influence them for good. Now, a child is born into the world attached, needing attachment to the mother and the parents. I mean, you've read studies about orphanage, children who've been born and put in an orphanage without physical touch, and they just suffer all their lives. So attachment occurs naturally with a baby and his mom. And so you don't have to do a lot other than just love them. you just love them, and they attach. Now, you also have children. I had one who was born like a board. You know, you think that child's not attaching. Because you'd hug, to this day, you hug that son, and he kind of tolerates mother hugging him. But that's okay, because it's important that I continue to have physical contact with him to keep attachment. Attachment, we'll talk about how to build attachment in a minute, but what I want you to see is the importance of attachment. And then I'm going to talk to you about how to create it. Okay? So you have a child that's in your home, and say both of you are working. Now, I'm not talking about your home. I'm talking about their home, you know, the world. You have two parents that are working, and they're very busy, and they have trained their little people in screen time. If you doubt this, sit in sacrament meeting and watch how many little people are playing on phones, and they are quiet in church. But what are they attaching to? They're attaching to a screen. Or if you have stood at a doctor's office and you're making an appointment for an orthodontal appointment or whatever, and there's a little person, what does mom hand them? Her phone. And so these same things happen in the home. Believe me, you don't hand a child a phone in public who has no, it's like handing me a phone. I have no clue what you do with it. If it rings, you answer text, and if it doesn't, you leave it in your purse. These people who know how to do all, I mean, I sit in awe going, where did that come from? How'd you get that on your phone or whatever? Obviously, they know how to use it. But how do they know how to use it? Because they've used it. Now, am I saying that you need to have all of your children banned from screen time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But they do need to use how to respect and use screen time appropriately. And when you're teaching them that it's always there for their entertainment, what happens when they don't get it? Yeah, they throw tantrums, and they, you know, and they have their problems. And as they get a little bit older, it's cell phone time. And it's amazing, most children now, I read a study here just a little while ago, that by the time they're 8 years old, they have a cell phone. Now, yours probably don't at that age, I hope not. But I just want you to see that regardless of what you think your intention is, we are teaching them to bond to screens. You see that? Or, as we get them involved in all of these activities so they'll be good, and you know, be good in athletics and be able to play high school and do all this stuff, as we get them involved in all of this stuff, what are they bonding to? They're bonding to stuff, outside activity, and quite frankly, they're bonding to self. Because all of those things are revolving around them. We're going to get you to your football because you're so important, and we need, the whole family will sacrifice so you can go do this. And the whole family will sacrifice so you can do it, and you can do this, and you can do this. And we teach them that the world now should revolve around me. So you look at what you're teaching, even though your intention is right. Look at it a broader focus. What I want you to see is parenting. President Nelson, when he was Elder Nelson, said, we need to teach with righteous, intentional parenting. And so often what we do is use reactive parenting, meaning I don't have a plan. My plan is to be sure that you don't argue. That means you argue and I'm going to come and stop it. Does that make sense? Or you get sassy and I'm going to wash your mouth out with soap. I'm going to stop that. So I am simply reacting to whatever behavior you're doing. You know, Heavenly Father in the pre-existence set his plan in motion. And he created all of it before spiritually before he created it physically. We knew that there was a Redeemer and that there would be a Redeemer long before the Savior was ever born, long before Adam and Eve came, long before the plan was created. We just recently built a house. Well, it's not too recent anymore. 10 years ago we built a house. And we had plans drawn up for that house. One of the rules, if you've ever built a house, the contractor has to have a set of plans on site at all times. So if the inspectors come to inspect the electrical or the plumbing or the whatever, they go and they get the plans and they can evaluate what you're doing here in the house according to the plans. Now, the question is, what's the plan for your family? We do this reactive parenting rather than creating a plan and then parenting to the plan. So when we're reactive parenting, we never quite know how we're doing. We just know that there's always conflict and they're always mad at each other and they're never obedient and da-da-da. Those are all superlatives that you use and you shouldn't, because they're not always arguing. Sometimes they sleep. So you need to create a plan. Now, I would suggest that you talk to your family about what do you want your family to look like? What do you want this family to be? Not mom and dad being the authoritarian dictators, and I will tell you what this family is going to be. Let's just sit down and talk about what do you want this family to be? And you make that a list, and you think about it, and you talk about it. And you don't do anything permanent about it for a while. The Lord created everything spiritually before it was permanent. So think about it, talk about it, see, get all of their input. Let them figure it out. And after you've done this for a while, see, our problem is we have one home evening lesson on it, and then we never talk about it again. This has to be with intent. You know what intent means? It means you do it over and over and over and over and over and over. If you intend to lose 30 pounds, and tomorrow you are so good eating your veggies and drinking your water, and then the next day, like yesterday, I had chocolate cake for breakfast and a truffle thingy-majigger for lunch and banana bread for dinner. My intent was really good the day before, but yesterday wasn't too hot. So when you talk about righteous, intentional parenting, that means you do it for more than one family home evening. If this is your intent, then you stick on it. And so you talk about it. Righteous, intentional parenting means you are going to create the plan, and then you are going to parent to the plan. And they are going to help create it. Now, I'm going to use a word that a lot of you now are going to tune me out. Because you've heard it before, and it's sort of like genealogy. You go, oh, brother. And that is a family mission statement. Now, the reason that you tend to tune me out is because you say, I can never do it, I can never do it, I can never do it. And I want to make it really easy for you, because I don't want you to do it. I want your family to do it. I want this to be a picture of what your family wants to look like. Now, this can be revisited over the years. What you write when they're all preschoolers is not going to be what they're going to say when they're all teenagers. And usually the intent of the mission statement won't change, but the verbiage will. If you are unsure, look at my gospel standards that they have in the primary. It's a good idea. Now, this is what a mission statement is to have in it. I do not want you to go read Steve Covey's mission statement, because all of you will quit. It's amazing. So I read that in college and said, I'm never doing that one. But it is important. So these are the steps. First thing you do is gather your family and you say, what do you want this family to look like? And you make a list. So then you have a list. I want this to be an eternal family. I want us to be happy. I think that we should share. I think we need to eat dinner together. I think that we should whatever. Let them come up with the ideas. Now, it is a family thing. Don't be authoritarian where you say, okay, those are good ideas, but this is what we have to have. You take what they say. Then you list that, and then you draw a line, and you say, now, how do we accomplish that? So you have the picture, and then you have the how-to. And then you can leave it as simple as that. Or you can, people have put it in little fancy, schmancy thingies, you know, where they put all of the letters of their last name, and then they've written it. They're smarter than I am. Some of you scrapbook, and you do these really lovely, beautiful things. I don't do that. I copy everything, and so I can't copy yours, so then I can't copy that. So figure out a way that you want to post it. When the proclamation on the family came out, what did everybody in the church do? We ran and got it, and we put it up. The Living Christ, we ran and got it, and we put it up. How many of you have memorized them? A couple, see? But where do percentages go? How many of you read them regularly? How many of you teach to them? How many of you use a sentence of those for home evening lessons? How many of you make that a living document in your family? Or is it a beautiful thing on your wall? That's not guilt. I don't want guilt. I don't want anybody to look at me and go, oh, I haven't read mine for 5 years. I don't know. But I know what it is. You know, that's not what this is. But what I want you to understand is if you want to make this effective so you can use it as a tool in your family, you have to parent to it. Meaning you use it then as the pattern for the family. Once you figure out how you want it, format it, how you want it to be, then I would, you can frame it, you can put it on a poster board, you can do whatever you want, but I would post it in your home. I would also post it in each child's bedroom. I have very good friends with a family when their children were all teeny weenies, and they had all of their children who could not write thumbprinted to sign it. So they all went and put their thumbprints on because they are agreeing to this document. If they're older, I would have them sign it. Have everybody sign it. Is this what we want our family to look like? Then we all sign it. And you present this in a happy, positive, good way. This isn't authoritarian. You're not, okay, what are we going to do? You cannot, you will not put that in this. We want to giggle and have fun and be silly. Put it in. Some of you, I am not silly. I am not. But if my kids wanted to put that in, I would put it in, and I would learn how to be silly. But I would learn. I would learn how to do that. And they've taught me how to. I have done some amazing things you would never believe, and I would never want it visual. But you learn to do these things. Yes?
I just have a question, because I know what will happen in my family. They'll suggest something that goes against our values. Like, I don't think we should have to go to church. Something like that. So how do you approach?
Then in that, I would say, you know what? I think that when you leave home, that's something you can put in your family statement. Absolutely. Don't tell them, no way, in this house you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you cannot put that in my mission statement. Allow them, but that way you're saying, the standards here are, we're going to go to church. And when you're on your own, bottom line is you can't force them. I mean, that's the reality. And if they know that you'll love them, even if they make that choice, you'd be surprised how often then they'll choose to do, but they're kind of doing it a little bit out of rebellion, wanting to find power. And as we go through this class, we'll teach them how to have power without rebelling against you or feeling like they have power. So that's the way I'd handle it. I'd say, you know what? That's a fabulous one when you get your own apartment to put on your wall, if that's what you really want. Now, what else should we put in ours? Don't dwell on it. And don't lecture about it. Don't lecture. This is not lecture. Did you have your hand?
Yeah, my son, who's not active, and his girlfriend are living at our house.
Mhm.
Not my best idea, but they won't be staying with us probably more than a few months. And I just wondered if I should include them in doing this temporarily, or just use my other teenage son who's with us.
Any ideas? I mean, I've got my own, but.
It depends on what you want to have a standard in your home. If you want them to abide by a standard in your home, then yeah, I would have them participate in it. If you don't want them to be set up for the standard in your home, then don't have them participate.
But remember what you teach if you have a dual standard to your teenagers that you have living at home. If you exempt them from rules, you're saying, if you choose not to live the rules, I will exempt you too. Do you see what I'm saying? So be careful what you teach. Even though you don't think you're teaching something. You're always teaching. You're always teaching. That's what intentional parenting means.
How about create one while they're there, and then when they leave, you can recreate another one with your kids.
Yeah, okay.
That work? So
Anything works.
yeah.
Bottom line is pray about it first.
Okay.
Pray about it first. But if you want your children to live to a vision, which we all do, how many of you have created the vision for them to live to? That they can see and evaluate themselves too. How many of them know? Oh, they know what the rules are. But how many of them know the vision? And feel like they're part of that. They're part of that. They got to help create that. Do you see how much more ownership that makes in wanting to be in it? Let me share with you an example of a mission statement. This is from President Cobb. Some of you may know him. He lives out in Cuna. His family created this. When his oldest daughter went away to college, she was very homesick one night and called home, and he told her every night before she went to bed to say the family mission statement. And she would repeat that every night before she said her prayers. And she just felt the family just there, wrap their arms around her and hold her. And if you use this in that positive kind of way, this is the beginning of bonding our family, attaching our family to one another so we feel like we are a unit, rather than individuals trying to survive under the same roof. Now we're coming together to create this bonded unit. So let me share with this mission statement. He said, it is, and it's in your syllabus on page 11. Our home will be, now remember it's first what it is, and then how to create it, the to-do. So it's the what, and then the do. And he says, our home will be founded upon principles of faith, prayer, order, respect, love, and gratitude. Now it's the to-do. As a family, we will go to church together, have family home evening together, eat together, read scriptures together, work together, pray together, and play together. As we do these things, we will have a Christ-centered home where the Spirit is present. Now, yours doesn't have to sound like that, but it's what you want and then how you will get it, and this helps them create a picture. Okay, going back to attachment. In creating attachment, if your children have not attached to you, if you are too busy for them, even if you have a really sweet child that seems to just be fine on their own and is always over there doing something, or you have a real forceful child who demands attention and you're always interacting but it's in a negative way, by the time they're in second grade, if they haven't made good attachments at home, they will attach to peers. Some of you have children who have already attached to peers. Whom they're attached to is whom they will listen to. So if you want to be able to teach them and train them and motivate them you have to be their primary attachment. That does not mean you raise them in a bubble where they can't have friends and they don't have experiences and they're just you so that they'll always love you and you'll be the only one that they care about. That's not right. But if you listen to them, ask their opinions, work with them, I'm going to give you a whole list of what you do to create attachment. If you do these things to create attachment, it's being the authoritative parent. Then, even though they go out in the world, they're concerned about what you think and what you feel and about what you have to teach them. If that attachment is not there and they go out into the world, you have peers teaching peers. You have immature children teaching immature children. And when they go to develop their self-esteem, how brutal can children be to each other? Very brutal. And so they have a very lack of self-esteem because they're always in this, what's important to them is this environment where they're always being beat up on. Now, if they attach to you as the primary attachment, then as you discuss, and we'll talk about how to how to say the positives, how to give the encouragement, we're going to get there. But as they attach to you because you know how to do that, then they believe. We had a family home meeting the other night, and this granddaughter that's living with me, he's 10 years old, we were talking about, we were going around the circle and we were saying, what do you not care about? What in this world do you not care about? It's not important to you. And she's 10 years old and she says, I don't care about the opinions of other people. I thought, whoa, good for you. She said, because I just want to be the best I can be. And so, do you see the difference? She has an extremely strong primary attachment with her mother. Healthy primary attachment with her mother. She will go out and try anything because her self-esteem is so high. That's what happens when you have good primary attachment. They still go out and live and do and be, but they're based on a very healthy foundation. Now, if you don't have a healthy foundation, but they've attached to a primary adult, a bishop, a scout leader, a mutual leader, a primary teacher, it's okay. They just have to have a primary attachment, which is where you feel comfortable for it to be. I have grandsons who, as they got a little bit older and they went into that age where they're seniors and they kind of know it all, their primary attachment became to an uncle, to another one of my sons, who was fun because my daughter would call him and say, this is what I need you to tell them. And then they would call him and in different words would validate what their mother had said. So, you know, they just have to have that primary attachment that's a source that you're comfortable with. Yes?
How do you know, I guess, if they're bonded to you as the primary attachment?
It's how they treat you.
Healthy.
It's how they treat you. They treat you with respect. If they listen to you, if they pay attention to what you say, they have attached to you. If they are defiant, if they are rude, if they are, then and they always want to be with their friends, and they're always texting their friends, and they're always on the phone with their friends, where's their attachment? It's with their friends. It's with peers.
But what if they don't have that? That's not, but you're still wondering.
Their attachment can be with sports, it can be with peers, it can be with media, it can be with screens. It's not just with peers.
It's not necessarily a person.
No, it can be
attachment,
yep.
primary attachment
Yep.
to things.
Yep. Yes.
So I'm trying to determine, isn't it natural for teenagers around 15, 16, 17 to kind of detach a little bit and kind of venture out a little bit? And trying
Absolutely.
to decide where that's normal and healthy and where that's not.
It is good. It is good. But it all boils back down to, are they still listening to you? Are they still paying attention to what you... they're not going to, you don't want them to be like an elementary school and have her right here, right next to you. That's not the attachment you want. But respect, yes. Sharing feelings, yes. And it's done by, and we'll talk about how this is done, but yeah, they're going to pull away about age 14, 15. They start pulling away, and they should. But if you know that that's a natural part of life, and you're starting to give them more responsibility, then that is a healthy, you're still attached, and that's teaching them in healthy ways. We want to raise them to be responsible and resilient, which means you don't do everything for them. They're not under your thumb all the time. You're helping them pull away. You want them to pull away, but you do it in a healthy way. And it means that you still parent teenagers. So when they make a mistake, there are consequences. We'll talk about those here in a minute. Okay, let me give you a list. I'm a list person. I do best with lists. I know the new Come Follow Me is no list. We all just share ideas. But I'm a list person because I am very simple-minded. And I like to see ideas. Now, with that being said, this list is not inclusive. What you have to realize is the principle that I was trying to teach you about attachment. It is imperative that if you want to teach and train your children, you have to have attachment. You have to have attachment. We want our children to attach to the prophet. So they'll listen to him and be taught by him. And they can attach to him even though it's not one-on-one. So if you can get the vision of the principle, then these are just ideas of how to create it. And as you hear this list of ideas, then hopefully you'll add to it. As you think about it and pray about it, you'll add to it. But let's kind of go through some of these so that you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. Because I think you don't have the idea yet. I think what you think is you have to just be their good guy so they'll like you. And that is not what I'm talking about. Not at all. You have to be somebody they can respect and knows that you love them with a pure heart. So that does not mean you're the good guy, meaning giving them everything they want. That's not what it means. So here's a list of 10 things that help create attachment. Now, some of you who are talking about your children who are always fighting, who are quarreling a lot, who are treating you disrespectfully, look at this list and see if there's one thing on the list that you could improve on. Because as you start creating this list in relationships, then it creates closeness. Now, here's the kink. Always a kink. You cannot do this in a group. So you cannot say, I want to attach to my children like a hen and gather my little chicks under my wings and hold them close. Attachment is created individually. And it is not one. You cannot buy it by giving them what they want. It is earned through respect. So you have to earn it, and you have to do it one by one. Some of your children will be easy to attach to, and some of them are not. But it doesn't matter if they're easy or hard. The ones that are hardest to attach to are the ones who need you the most. So here's the list. Here we go. Number 1, boundaries. Children need boundaries. Boundaries in space, boundaries in time, boundaries in behavior. Boundaries includes positive discipline. If they are not disciplined, they don't learn self-respect. Self-respect comes as you learn to control the natural man. And controlling the natural man is taught as you're disciplined when you let the natural man out of control. So they give children confidence and security. We'll talk about how to positive discipline. I think next semester we'll take 4 hours and teach you how to discipline in a positive way. But children, teenagers, all children need to be disciplined. Okay? It's a different story when they come back and live with you later. That's another lesson. But we'll talk about that another day. But as long as from birth to 18, there need to be consequences and positive discipline. That creates respect.
I was just going to ask what you meant by positive discipline, but it sounds like
we got 4 hours worth of it to go. I know. And when I say, and that's next semester, you go, that's why I'm here. Okay, I'm not coming back till January. Okay, number 2. Oh, let me tell you a little bit of on boundaries. That also includes limiting screen time, docking phones, docking screens, having family time without screens. Let me tell you of a couple of experiences I've just had recently in different places. I was talking to a lady in the ward, and she was telling me about an experience that she had. She had had a couple of her, I think it was nieces, in her home. Good kids, good little girls, But they came out to her, and they wanted to know why the jewelry box in the top of her closet was locked. And they said that they really loved and they itemized several pieces of jewelry she had in her jewelry box on her counter. Now, those children would not steal anything. It's not like they were trying to go through her stuff to steal something. But they had not been taught appropriate personal boundaries. And that's taught in your home among siblings, that you don't get into siblings' things, and you don't go pick flowers at the neighbor's house. In teaching boundaries, that's the kind of things we're talking about. They're really good little girls, had no malicious intent, and had not been taught proper boundaries. You may have boundaries on your kitchen. Some of you, may have a closed kitchen where you don't just eat all day, graze through the day. Some of you may have an open kitchen, but they need to know if they go into somebody else's kitchen, it's closed, unless they're invited in. Somebody offers them something, and that's okay. I've had elders come to my home and go straight to my refrigerator. So they weren't taught boundaries. So you need to teach boundaries.
Yeah. For boundaries, I always have a hard time finding appropriate consequences for boundaries. Because once I say a consequence, I want to follow through with it, but sometimes the consequence is thought of real quickly, and when I try to enforce it, I'm like, oh, why did I pick that? So how do you come up with decent consequences when the boundaries are broken? I have the toughest time with that.
Can I tell you I'm not answering that right now? In 4 hours, with 4 hours on discipline, we'll probably spend 2 on consequences. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a real good question, and we will deal with it head on, but not right now. Number 2, routines. Your children need routines. They need a time to get up. They need a time to go to bed. You need to be sure that your children, teenagers, are getting enough sleep. They go into the bedroom and get on their screens and they stay up till midnight. They won't be healthy. They'll be crabby. They'll be ornery. Curfews, they need to have routine in their day. They need to have a time every day that they do jobs. They need to have a time where they do homework. They need to have a time to play. So they need to see that. If they don't acknowledge it as a routine, that this is what we do, then they'll argue with you every single time they want to do something different. If they know that this is the pattern of how we do it in our home, and you start teaching that from the time they're very young, then they doesn't mean they won't ever complain. They will, but it will be a lot less. Number 3, family dinners. Families bond, attach to one another who eat together. So as often as you can have family dinners, have family dinners. You say, well, we sit down and have family dinner, we all just sit there and look at each other. Well, you may have to create conversation. So you need to be talking together. Family dinner, they may not put anyone down at the table. They may not use put downs, even though that's today's humor. They are not allowed to do that in the home. The home is a safe place for the name of every child in your home. So they're not allowed to do that. But you need to have no electronics. The TV's not on in the other room. That you focus on one another as you sit in family dinner. The other thing about family dinner, you have some children who inhale food at a rapid pace and then want to be excused. They are not allowed to be excused until dinner is over. So if they have eaten in 25 seconds and everybody else takes 32 minutes, they will stay there for 32 minutes. Part of that teaches them to eat more slowly. And
how do you make a 2-year-old do that?
Okay, 2 is obviously a little bit different. Their time span is not as great, but within the realms of their capability, you have them, stay with you. The thing about 2-year-olds, the biggest thing to do with a 2-year-old is that they come to the table and they sit to the table while you have dinner. They tend to grab something and wander and come back and grab something and wander. So what you're teaching them is that at mealtime we sit up and we eat. And we start together, and they may be done very quickly, and that's okay. They can be done because they're 2. But as they get older, they'll stay longer. Is that on the level that they're at?
Making her sit with me on my lap because she keeps running off.
That's fine. But you have to reach a point where, with a 2-year-old, what you begin to do is say, you're growing up. So you get to sit in your own chair right next to me. And if she gets down, you put him back in the chair. And then, we're really going into discipline here, and I don't want to. But the next thing is you give her her own chair because she's a big girl. Don't talk. We talk too much. So you say, if you get down from the table, you're done. So she gets down from the table to roam, you take her dish, you put it in the kitchen, and it is gone. And you sit back down and finish your meal, and she'll come back in a few minutes because she wants more to eat. You say, I am so sorry. I thought you were done. You got down from the table. Oh, we'll have a good breakfast tomorrow.
So when they throw the huge fit on the ground, what do you do at that point?
You can want to do it. We're going into discipline.
These are your real problems.
I'm not going to do it. Number 4. Oh, I pay myself when I do this.
I just wanted to, something that works in my house with my older kids every night, everybody has to say 2 things that were good that day. Half the time, it's this dinner's super yummy, which is one of them, but it has opened so many conversations.
But what you need to do, if that's what happening half of the time, you create a sentence that they have to finish.
That's a great idea.
So that it can't be, I love this dinner. I'm going on. I'm going on. Number 4, you're going to be here till noon. Number 4, hugs. Personal touch. We need, Virginia Satire, family therapist said, we need 4 hugs a day for survival. Think, are you hugging each child 4 times a day, including your spouse? Most of you will say no. Then she said, we need 8 hugs a day for maintenance. We need 12 hugs a day for growth. So if you never hug your children, percentages, try once with each of them as they go to bed. If you hug sometimes, try to increase. Now, she says hugs, I say touch. They need to have personal one-on-one physical touch. If it's not a hug, that's okay. Some of them can't stand a hug. But there needs to be, regardless of who they are, physical touch every day, including your spouse. Okay? Number 5. And I don't want any discussion on this. because we are going to spend 2 hours on this one at least. This is one I tend to go over 4, and we have problems, but anyway. And that's on work. You have got to teach your children to not just do jobs. Making your bed and cleaning your room is not sufficient to develop resilient children. So we will talk about how to do that, but not right now. Don't you hate me? Okay, number 6. This is one that most of you either do really, really well and you never teach work, or you do really, really poor and you always teach work. And that is learn to play with your children. So if they have an extra half hour at night and they want to just get on a screen, say no. Bring out a game. Let's play a game. Bring out Sorry if they're little. We've been playing Past Lives, which it's an old game. I don't even imagine you know what it is. But play games with your children. Interact with them. Do fun things with them. Put on music and dance with them. That would be a joke at my house, huh? But, do fun things with them. Go out and shoot hoops with them. Jump on the trampoline with them if you haven't had 6 kids already. If you have, stand at the side of the trampoline and cheer for them as they jump on the trampoline. Go bike riding with them. Go rollerblading with them. Have fun with them. Play with them. Play with them regularly. Regularly. Create memories instead of giving them things. Now remember, when your children look back, a memory is a picture of something they've done, and you want to be in that picture. So if you're always sending them out to have fun, go ride your bikes, go do this, go do that. Just go, just go. You need to be in the memories. Go build a sandcastle with them. Go make mud pies. Be in the memory with them, regardless of their age. Play with them. We'll talk about how to play with older kids, but you need to play with them. And most of you don't laugh enough. Laugh, tell jokes, smile, sing. Let your kids know. That's still playing. Just let them know you're happy to be their mom. How many of your kids come over to school and say, Mom, how was your day? Fine. How was your day? And they'll say, fine. You say, you can't just tell me fine. What did you do in your day? You have this face of gloom, and yet you're supposed to be happy, and yet we're scolding them if they're not just smiling and jubilant and thrilled, and yet what are we doing? So be an example of joy, and they'll feel joyful. Play with them. Number 7, slow down. Take time to look at your children individually. Take time to pray. Take one day this week, if you have less than 7 children. Take one day to focus on each child. And on that day, pray about that child, think about that child, meditate on that child. The Lord will tell you what that child needs. But we just live these crazy fast ping pong lives that we can never focus on a child, especially the quiet child. So take a day, slow down, and at the end of that day, if you choose to do this, it's an invitation, if you choose to do it, I would suggest that at the end of the day, you go into that child's room and you kneel beside the bed with them as they say their prayers. I don't care how old they are. And you ask the child if you can be the voice in the prayer. And you say the prayer. And as you say the prayer, you tell Heavenly Father how much you love this child, how grateful you are for this child, and point out in the prayer some of the positive attributes that this child brings to your family. I promise you, that's a hard thing to do. If you do it, you'll have an amazing experience. Amazing. Number 8, put music in your lives. Share good music. And you'll say, I don't like the music my teenagers listen to. So that's not the music you're sharing. Share good music. Listen to music together. It doesn't all have to be hymns. There can be some pretty good beat songs. The EFY always has great soundtracks that come out every year. There's great, great music out there on all levels. Fill your home with the sound of music. Music is a powerful influence for good. So use music. I believe in music lessons. I believe in piano lessons. Now, you'll say, did you make all your kids take piano lessons? And I would say yes to a point, and then I quit because I wasn't going to fight the fight anymore. So you have to pick your battles. But they need to be exposed to the self-discipline of learning music. If you can afford it, if you want it, but it's just a good thing. It's a good thing for them to learn. And if you can't afford it, then just to have good music playing in their home. As my kids were growing up, my good music, it was not their good music, and I loved the classics. I loved the classics. And I would have it on all the time. And the kids would come home from school and say, oh, Mother, that's just elevator music. That's just your elevator music. And now when I go to their homes, guess what they're listening to? They're listening to my elevator music. And so, you know, you just have good music. Number 9, family home evening, family prayers, family scriptures, temple attendance. We'll do a whole lesson on that. They need to be regular, and they need to be part of doing them. We'll talk about how to do that. 10 is Sabbath day and temple. So I kind of put 9 and 10 together.
Can you say 9 again?
Yeah. Family home evening, family prayer, family scriptures. Family prayer, family scriptures daily, family home evening weekly. Now, I'm going to make a little confession. When I was born, TV had just barely been invented. Well, it had been there for a little while, but still only had black and white. And they were just really small. There was no such thing as a microwave. There was no such thing as cell phones. No such thing as computers. No such thing as the internet. So, life's changing. In the 30 years I've been teaching this class, cell phones, cell phones, internet, all of those things have become an issue. So your life is going to find change. Your parenting you'll find change. You're going to have to reevaluate, readjust constantly. But if you keep the basic principles, the sure foundation there, attachment is a sure foundation. It has to happen. We know it has to happen between us and the Savior. It is a true principle. So look for the principles. Some of the other things around it will change between now and the time you're a grandma. I promise you. But if you will listen to the conference talks, you will always stay on it. Now, I want to share with you in closing a letter that came from my grandson to my daughter. He is on his mission in Argentina still. He's got about another year to go. He is a good boy, a typical boy that tried to do things, sneak on his mom and do those things that teenagers do. You're talking about how do you cut apron strings when, how do you make it healthy and still let them go? This is what attachment looks like from the eyes of the child. He and his mom have great attachment, but she was a firm disciplinarian. Wonder where she learned that. Listen to it. Listen to the content of what he's saying. Dear Mom, I know you have heard it a lot from me, but thank you. I think back on memories growing up, and you are always in them. I remember back to old TV shows I watched, and you were always there to say, nap time. I remember when you helped us say our prayers at night, and home evenings together, and family scriptures at night, when you explained the stories. Countless fights you spent breaking up, punishing us, but when we had cooled down, you took the time to console us and teach us why you did what you did. Every night, you wrapped us up in blankets like a caterpillar, and we broke free just so that you could do it again, play. You always took me to friends' houses and practices, and I even remember you there when I never wanted to talk, when I was being disobedient or angry, or even just wrapped up in myself. I can't remember a day after school when you settled for good as my response to how my day was. I almost never had a game without a fan to talk to after a win, or take me home and buy me pizza after a loss, even if I didn't want to talk. There are no memories without you. That has been my life. Looking back, I can't believe that you had time that wasn't spent on me, much less for 5 more just as, if not more, difficult. That is the life of a mother. You give your life to give us ours. You try so hard to be part of our lives, and we try so hard to escape. You loved us so purely, and we tried pushing it away. You give all, sacrificing our view of you for our eternal well-being. How hard it must be, how many nights you must have spent praying and worrying because you knew we were in trouble because of our choices. That is the life of a mother. That and cleaning and cooking and doing the laundry and the dishes and the bills and the shopping. But you are not just a mother. You are a wife, the wife of a bishop. You hold a calling in the primary and as a visiting teacher. I guess I just assumed you didn't have a life. You didn't have to worry about your goals, dreams, progression, studies. I never knew. I love you, Mom, but not like you love me. The love to text and call and make sure I was where I said I was and to protect me, only to follow with being called the warden. The love to be rejected and pushed away time after time, child after child, and to keep trying. To push past all of the tears and sorrows for our happiness and well-being. That is the love of a mother. That is pure love. That is the pure love of the Savior Jesus Christ. Or the start of it, I suppose. I believe that we spend 20 years rejecting our mother's love, only to spend the next 40 years understanding it. And the last 20, we appreciate and embrace it. I want to get a head start on appreciating it, even though I don't understand it. Thank you, and I love you. And as always, you were right. That's the rewards that come when you parent with a righteous purpose. I testify to you, the Lord will show you how to do it. He will walk beside you, and He will embrace your children as you make that effort to parent with righteous intent. In the name of Jesus